Thanks for tuning in to Person Empowerment TV. I'm your host, Shani Curry-St Vil. And I might as well say happy Memorial Day. Yes, yes. All right, so I'm still coming to you during the quarantine, making sure that you keep your money on your mind and your mind on your money. Yes. All right, so as we start every episode, today we have like a really great guest. One of my financial friends is going to be talking about how she has done debt elimination, specifically as it relates to student loan debt. She has a very interesting perspective about why she is not going to be participating in any of the COVID relief programs as it relates to student loan debt. So, for those of you who are just tuning in, you want to hang around because we're going to talk about what my guest today is saying, no, I'm straight when it comes to, to that COVID-19 non-payment to student loans up until September. Okay, so right before we get and we delve into this conversation, no matter what it is that we decide to talk about together, it is always going to be important and imperative that not only that you listen to some of the mathematical suggestions that I'm going to share with you through the my guest that's going to share their experience with debt elimination, home and ownership, investing in real estate. So they're going to share a lot of different things, but what I want you to gather the most is their mindset. Okay. So starting with mindset, I want you to open up your spiritual purse. I want you to open up your actual purse. I want you to open up your bank account, whatever it is that puts money on your mind. And I want to do something that I always do every time that I connect with you and I share at least one thing that's going to put some power in your purse. So open up. Come on. Come on. I know you can use a little money, especially if you ate all your quarantine snacks or whatever. Or if you just spent all your stimulus check, I know you can use a little bit of spiritual money coming at you. You ready? My gun better not act up this week. You guys ready? Your spiritual purse, your actual purse, somebody else's purse, it don't matter to me, sis. Okay? You's ready? Here goes. Oh, totally worked. Totally worked this week. Totally worked. I'm so proud of it. All right, so if that doesn't make you feel rich, today's guest is definitely going to share some things with you that's going to put some power in your purse. She is one of my boss babes, one of my favorite financial friends. We're always holding each other accountable, always sharing new innovative ideas, always pushing each other's purses. So I'm going to bring her on now. Her name is Ivy Bennett. Hi. Hey, Ivy.
Hi. Hey.
Okay, whatever. You see, but I'll be all right, so as every show, I am gonna do some giveaways. All right, so here's my book, 10 Things Every Woman Should Keep in Her Purse. The only thing you have to do to enter the raffle is make sure that you A, comment, and B, like my IG page. It's at Purse Empowerment. And if you haven't gotten one of my pins yet, money making pins, I'm not bossy, I'm the boss. So I'll be giving away 2 things today. All right, in the comment section. So load up your questions as it relates to student loan debt. All right, Ag, so what we're going to start with is just talking about programs that are available to you through COVID-19. Let's share a little bit of your perspective about COVID-19 as it relates to student loan debt.
Okay, sure. As Shani mentioned, my name is Ivy Bennett. Hi, everyone. Happy Memorial Day. It's rainy here in Florida, but I hope you're having a good day nonetheless. Regarding some of the benefits of that were a part of the CARES Act that was passed a couple of months ago or a month or so ago, basically the major benefit is that you get 6 months of non-payment. You can excuse me. There is no interest accumulating during the 6 months, and 6 months to pause, and it was from March 13th to September the 30th. So from March 13th to September the 30th, you can, your student loans are automatically put into a forbearance status. Now that does not include everyone. That does not include private loans. That does not include Perkins loans, nor does that include privately owned FFELP loans. So not everybody can utilize the benefits that are a part of the CARES Act, which is a little bit of an issue that we can talk about.
Right. So, Ivy, when you looked at, so interesting enough, a lot, and here's something that you and I have always shared. Me and Ivy have had a long-standing friendship over 5 years, and the good thing about having friends with money is that we don't always agree with each other, right? We don't always agree with each other, and we have very strong disagreements, and sometimes later on, we may come back and be like, you know what? That was right that you were saying. I'm cool with that. I'm like, you're right. And so one of the things that I think, and we'll go back to why you have decided that you don't want to participate in what has been available through the CARES Act and what you thought about that. But interesting enough, I just think overwhelmingly the way that we millennials think about student loans is just very interesting. I think it's a very interesting. Do I think that the way student loans are amortized should be grounds for a national lawsuit? Yes, I do. The way that the way that the interest rates are calculated daily, I think that it should be outlawed. I find it to be predatory lending. In fact, that's the way I feel about the calculation of the way student loan debt calculates. So I do want to say that. So I do believe that there is a bit of unfairness. I do understand that in some other countries, they're organized in such a way that you don't have to pay for education, right? So I can see how we can compare our educational system to others and be a little peeved. I get it. However, one of the things that we consciously got to look at is that student loans, number one, they're loans. They're not grants, right? They're loans, not grants, right? So oftentimes people look at them as if it's not something I have to pay, right? It's like a thing, right? They don't have to pay it. So that's like the first thing. Like, so that's the first thing. Number one, if you're interested in becoming a homeowner, that lax ideology towards your student loan is not something that can be long-standing. If you do not pay your student loans as it relates to how they're amortized and you're paying both principal and interest, you're not even in the line to become a homeowner because they're basically going to calculate your student loan, 1% of your student loan debt towards your DTI, your debt to loan income. So you're not going to want to have that. You're going to want to pay your student loans. The other thing, as it relates to student loans, and I have this with a lot of my clients that are attorneys, that are doctors, that just have professional careers, right? And if you think about it, if it had not been for student loans, I mean, a lot of us would have been working at McDonald's. Like we would have stayed, right? That's an idea that has to be addressed. Like when you look at your student loans, just look at it. Did I have $100,000 laying around? Did my parents have $80,000 laying around so that I can go to college and be educated, right? So I do understand the way that the loans are organized and calibrated and amortized. I understand. I agree with you. But just adjusting yourself in terms of a little bit of gratitude, like had it not been for, there's a possibility that I wouldn't even be complaining about these loans, number one. And number two, I wouldn't have been a doctor, a lawyer, an attorney. Now, one of the things that I do, you can jump in at any time. Interesting enough is that I do think that oftentimes that when we get professional, sometimes when we get degrees, we're not very strategic about how we're going to pay off that debt. Absolutely. That's the first part. Like we're looking at free money, but it is a part of like your financial plan. You understand? Like you should be looking for ROI, right? But sometimes based on what you think about school, you kind of just, throwing it out there and you're not understanding that this is a loan, and it is supposed to support you in one of your goals. So I think a mental adjustment would be the first thing as it relates to your student loan debt. That number one, it is not a grant. It is a loan. You borrowed something. You pay it back. If it had not been for the Lord on your side, where would you be?
I agree. You know what? Here's the thing, though. When I initially took out loans to go to college, I graduated at 17, right? And then when I graduated from high school, I went to Florida State the summer, not like 2 weeks after I graduated, I was already going to summer school at Florida State. So I think that in those moments when you're young and you're eager and you're excited about going to school because you're told that that's the next best thing to do, you're not thinking
Mhm.
about the fact that this is a loan that has interest, that, you know, that's going to continue to calculate. Like, I didn't think about any of those things. I don't even know if I had like a grasp. I understood what a grant was. I understood what the scholarships was. I understood what a loan was. Thankfully, I had like bright futures, so a good amount of my undergrad was paid for. But at that young age, to allow, right, someone that young to be able to have access to that amount of money without fully understanding what the responsibility is on the other end. Now, whose responsibility is that, right? Is it our parents? They may or may not know. Is it the schools that we are graduating from? You know, like, so now as an adult, I can say, and I shared this with you the other day, that really changed my mind about how I was feeling about student loans, because I was feeling like it felt like a burden. Like, oh, these student, like every time I thought about it, there was this negative type of emotion that I would have. But it took you to say what you just said, and that, like, had it not been for that, I wouldn't have been able to go to school, possibly, right? I did have bright futures, which took care of 75% of my tuition, but there are other costs associated with going to school. I had just lost my dad. He had just passed away, literally high school when I was a senior. And, you know, my mom was just, you know, she had 2 other children. So I don't know if I would have been able to go had those loans not been there. So now, thinking back as an adult, you know, in hindsight, I do have I'm in a totally different mental space when it comes to my student loans. And I think that is the reason why I've come up with like this, like, I'm almost obsessive about it, because I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get done with it. I'm going to be, you know, 100% debt free, which is ultimately my goal. But it did take that mental shift, which thankfully, when we have fabulous friends who are able to kind of shift our perspective, giving us different ideas on things, like, it's so helpful, because it does not bother me, which is funny. Like, the
Right,
amount that I owe does not bother me, not even a little bit at this point. And it took a
right,
while to get
right,
there.
right, right. And I think that I just think like it's just like it's more of like a mentality shift. You
Mhm.
know, how you do anything is how you do everything, and just addressing it from the perspective of just those 2 tenets. Number one, it's not a loan, it's not a grant, it was a
Right,
loan. Number
right.
two, if I didn't have it, you know, would I even be in the position to even make the decisions that I've had, and showing some level of gratitude in finding the most strategic way to eliminate them. All right, so
Absolutely.
that's great. Now that we've set the as it relates to, you know, just mental money. So why'd you decide that, okay, what they're offering over to me through, you know, non-payment, why did you decide that, yeah, no, I'm straight, I'm just going to pay my student loan,
Well,
that, you know, the way that I've been paying?
okay, so here's the thing. 2 things. One, um, momentum, right? Thankfully, I'm one who I'm still working. I still have 2 careers that I can work through the pandemic. So I'm still working. I still have an income. Um, and I'm very grateful for that, understanding that not everybody is in that position. And I've budgeted it in, and not a lot has shifted in my income. So I'm able to continue. So that's first. Second, I have one of the FFELP loans that I cannot, I'm not in the COVID plan, essentially, right? So I can stop paying. Like, they do have, when I heard about the no interest, no payments for 6 months, the first thing I did was call Navient, who's my servicer. I called them and like, hey, do I qualify for this? And they were like, no, you don't. However, you are able to take advantage of a 60-day forbearance, but in the interim, my interest would still be calculating daily. And so that told me, no, ma'am, I do not want to participate in that, because like, for what? Because as my interest is calculating, like, everything is still, you know, the money is still adding up in my mind. So because I was able to, thankfully, then I continue to make the payments.
All right. So that is, so are you thinking, so a lot of the times, I think that's another thing, right? So another part of it is many people, like a lot of my clients, they have not lost their employment. They're still working, they're working from
Mhm.
home. If they're not working from home, then they receive a stimulus check and they received, some of them are receiving unemployment.
Mhm.
And they haven't really lost income, but yet they're not wanting to still pay their student loans. You
Right.
know, like they're just thinking like, okay, oh, I'm just gonna hold this, just this ideology. And I think oftentimes something happens to us mentally where
Mhm.
like we get in this idea of like entitlement. You understand what I'm saying? Like we think like, like we're owed something. And I think
Mhm.
that mental position just creates a lot of financial stagnation. Like
Mhm.
if you have access, why wouldn't you pay it? You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Why
Right.
do you this is, and what do you think about that, Ives? Like as it relates to you having access to resources, in no way I'm talking about people who lost their income,
Sure.
or had a reduction in they're entrepreneur, but specifically you're earning your income, but you're like, okay, no one else is paying, I'm not gonna pay either.
Yeah.
Why would you kind of like your plan of being able to pay off thousands of student loan debt? You were talking the other day about how you paid off $30,000 in debt.
Right.
Why do you think that? Why would you think like that's not best?
I think that personally, my goals are directly correlated to my behavior, right? Um, my goal is to be 100% debt free. That is my personal goal. All I have remaining in debt is student loan debt, which for me means that I need to get rid of student loan debt in order to become 100% debt free. So I am so obsessive about it because it directly aligns with my goals. Now, in terms of someone else, like I've heard plenty of people are like, okay, student loans are what we have forever, going to be around forever. It is what it is. I don't care. Forget about it. And if that's the attitude, then naturally, then the behavior will follow, right? And so I think that I haven't taken that route because it's not aligned with my goals. My goals is to be done. And so being that I'm able to do it, I do it. And I'm also working on a lot of different personal things in my life, making sure that I am consistent, making sure that I am always doing my best. I'm always following through. And when I put in the time to kind of like build out a budget and set goals and set things that I want to do with my money, in order for me to continue to see myself as successful, I need to be consistent as long as I'm able to. And so that's why I continue to be consistent every single month in paying off my student loans, because it's a part of my goals.
All right. So what's interesting is the way that these student loans are. I don't think a lot of people understand how they're calculated. And that's
Yeah.
something that you really understand by the science. So through non-payment, right, during this period of time while the interest is frozen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once the interest, right, in September, and there is some talk about some other things. I'm hoping for that $10,000. I'm really
Me
still
too.
hoping for that 10. Listen,
As well
I ain't
over
got
here.
14,000. That's it. Slash me 10 on my 4. Here y'all go. Holla. But the interest rate, that's something that you explained very well. Like, so how is the interest rate on student loans calculated?
Daily, every single day. Every single day.
So disrespectful.
It's very disrespectful. I know my own personal numbers. Every day my student loans cost me $12.48 every single day. Every day. Every month, that's
Every day. So
$374.
you know what? Good for those of you that are tuned in. I think that is a good takeaway for those of you to just look at, right? How much you pay in interest on your
Yeah.
student loans every single day. I don't have mine down to a science like that. That's actually a homework assignment for
I
me.
told you I was
Shani,
obsessive
wasting $12 every day
every
that you hold
single
on to this.
day.
And my friends go, oh, what's 12 times 7? Oh, Shani, what's
Here's what's nice about it. I know for a fact Navient has a tool on their website that tells you exactly how much each of your individual loans is causing you, and you can do it by 1 day all the way up to 31 days. So if you wanted to,
which website is this? Which website is this? We make. Okay, we have to drop that one in the comments. I'm definitely going to use that tool myself because I'd like to see how much I am paying in interest every single day. That is like the highlight of the show. That was like the takeaway. All right, so in one of our conversations, we have names, and we were talking about just maybe about a few years back, and we start talking about the idea of strategically finding some ways to pay your student loans debt down faster, and we came up with some really great ideas as to how. And one of the things that I think some people don't use is the idea that you can get a side hustle, you can create a business, you can earn more money, you can change your employment just so that you can pay off your student loan debt faster. You know, it doesn't have to be there, just like your mortgage. It doesn't have to be there for 30 years. There's also a 15-year option, you know, there's also being able to make extra payments so that you change the amortization. Like,
I think we dropped off a little bit. I'll wait for Shani to return.
I was like feeling, I'm sorry about that. So I forgot where it was. Okay, yeah, so we were just talking about that. We got our first question, and we're going to get, when should you consolidate your student loans, or should you even do that? Okay, that's the next question right after this. They want to know, when should you consolidate your student loans, and should you even consider consolidation? I was saying something about, so we'll answer your question, Saisha, right after this. But as we were talking about some of the things that you decided to do when we had that conversation about, you don't have to keep the debt. You can figure out some strategic ways of eliminating. Can you talk a little bit from how you moved from that conversation into execution, which I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of that.
Thank you, ma'am. You know, I've gone to so many of your excellent events and workshops, and you talked about, I think there's 2 ways where you cut your expenses, you know, in terms of budgeting, right? So cutting your expenses. But then when you and I also had the conversation where if you want to do this faster, then you also need to make more money. So I kind of approached it in both ways, and where I look for ways to cut my expenses in my budget. So I minimized a lot of things, but then I also got my side hustle, which now I'm a realtor. I've been a Florida realtor for about 2.5 years now. So increasing my income and cutting my expenses and really focusing is really what has allowed me to pay things down. I started off with my car. I wanted to get that over with because I know once that was done, then I can take that payment and direct it towards my student loans. After the car, I focus on my credit cards, again, with the idea of once I am, you know, I'm getting this money, I'm reallocating the money from a bill to actually to paying off my student loans. So once I got done with my car and once I got done with my credit cards, now my focus is primarily my student loans. And with this second hustle, which is real estate, I've been able to live off of a portion of one income. The rest of the income from my first career goes directly to student loans, and all of my income from my second career, which is real estate, goes to my student loans, every single penny. When I get a commission check, I tell Shani this, I'll go to the bank, I deposit, and I pull over immediately, right? Like, so it's become like this ritual. I'm driving through the bank's drive-through, I pull over, the minute it's deposited, and I make a payment in the exact amount down to the penny to Navient. So it's just become this ritual of whenever I get this windfall of money, whether it be tax refund, whatever it is, whenever I get a windfall or the money that I'm allocating from the things that I used to have to pay, I direct it towards my student loans. And I've been able to gain momentum by having the income that is steady from my career, then also the income from my first career, and then also the income from my extra career as a realtor. So, lessen my expenses and making more money is is how I've been able to kind of get on top of this debt that feels like it never goes anywhere.
Okay, so some interesting takeaways, and we're going to get right into the questions that's coming at us. For those of you that are just joining us or just catching in, here are some very interesting takeaways that we have that we'd like to share with you. Number one, just considering we're going to drop that link down in the comments for you so that you can see how your student loans are calculated on a daily basis so that you can know that amount. So when you're disregarding them, you just know, like, this is how much you're owing and this is how much you're owing. That's a takeaway. The other takeaway that was just looked at is something we're always talking about is looking at your budget, right? Looking at your income versus your expenses. That is a way that you decide how much money you are wasting, how much money you have available to you to eliminate debt, whether that's going to be student loan debt, credit card debt. Something really key that Ivy also mentioned over in terms of which debt she decided to tackle first. If you're going to do extra payments towards something, obviously credit card debt will be first, just because those interest rates are a lot higher than what you're going to find on your student loans, right? So that's another thing that she offered over. The other one we also offered over that mental adjustment and just kind of feeling, letting go of that entitlement, feeling like, okay, somebody owed me for this education, just kind of grounding yourself and realizing, without Sally Mae, I might not even been at these people's job right now. Having that attitude. And then the last perspective that she just offered over is that, okay, so what I did was I created an additional stream of income in order to eliminate my student loan debt. I created an additional, so instead of being in the role of just complaining or, waiting for it to just be eliminated through osmosis, that might happen a little bit, but just in case you don't, you have an act yourself as you are able to transition. So the question that came to us by Saisha was, how do you feel about student loan consolidation? I have a perspective, but we'll let you go first.
Well, I mean, it depends on a few things, right? Right now, I'll tell you, most expensive interest amount is 6.8%. That's high, right? So a few of my loans are 6.8 interest. So if I'm able to consolidate to something that's lower than that, then it could possibly make sense. However, when you are thinking of consolidating a loan, there's a few things to think about. You want to obviously, you want to make sure that it makes money sense, right? So if you're going to have a lower interest, great. If you're consolidating with a private company, though, you have to think about some of the benefits that you may be losing. Not all of the private companies will give you the benefits that you have, like a forbearance period, or if you lose your job, so that's something you need to think about. Your loans will, capitalization will kick in, which means that whatever interest that you had that accrued prior to you consolidating, that now becomes a part of the principal, right? So those are some things to think about. I am actually, and this is something I thought about yesterday, as a matter of fact, about taking some of my about $10,000 worth of loans that I currently owe and consolidating them into Department of Education loans so that I can take advantage of the no interest and I'm obviously going to pay, but so that I can take advantage of the no interest into September the 30th. So that's something that some of us who are not a part of this, that was not directly benefited from the CARES Act, you can consolidate some of your loans into a Department of Education loan, as long as you're comfortable with paying September the 30th. Because at that September the 30th deadline, when it's over, your interest may be higher than where you just took it from. So these are the things that you want to think about. You want to look at what the capitalization amount will be, right? And you want to make sure that you're able to pay it off by that September 30th deadline. That's what I'm thinking about.
Okay, so that is a great idea to do. I keep leaving today. I'm back though. Hey, okay, So, I do think that is a very good perspective in terms of if you want to take a specific amount and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and transfer that over under a loan so that I can take advantage of this, and I am going to accelerate payment because there's no interest at this time, so that I can pay it. It's kind of like what you would do with your credit card debt, with the introductory rate of a credit card
Right.
balance transfer. You know the amount that you can afford to pay, so you're going to accelerate the elimination of that debt. So that's an excellent perspective.
Right.
My perspective, and I agree with everything that you said, my perspective would be for sure if you're thinking about home ownership or investing in real estate, one of the things that you definitely want to consider is consolidation, because it's just going to improve your credit report. Not to have 5, 6, 7, 8 loans all over the place, just to have a single payment will definitely, number one, improve score and definitely create a different relationship between you and your lender. Okay, so you guys send over more questions. I'm over 60,000 debt in student loan debt. Should I start paying on them? Yeah, depending on your goal. All right, so let's talk to Kings and Queens TV. She wants to know that she has over $60,000 in student loan debt. Should she even start paying them, Ives?
Can I say that I am so happy that you used a number, right? I'm so happy that you said how much you had, because I think that is one of the issues that we have with tackling student loans, is that there's this shame or stigma or secrecy, whatever the case may be. People won't tell their numbers. So I'm so glad that you mentioned your number, that you have this amount. And if it,
some people don't know their numbers.
That too. Some people don't even know. Yeah. Number one, know your number, right? Know your numbers. Go to studentaid.gov and find out how much you owe in total. That's first. In terms of your question, I mean, if it aligns with, if you have the budget to be able to, I would. But that's me. Like I would totally start paying on it. But it depends on what your budgets are. It depends on what your career is. It depends. There's all kinds of resources in terms of, like, are you in a career where you can get your loans forgiven? You know, like it really depends. Like, some of this is individualized, so it depends on your situation. But if you were me, then yes, I would start paying on my student loans.
Yeah. And I think any strategy is going to be based on any goal. I mean, for sure, at the beginning of the show, we started talking about if you're interested in investing in real estate, if you have not been a homeowner before, it's kind of like the gateway, right? You have to make sure that you are in a healthy relationship with your student loans, having some form of a payment on the system. Typically, if you're FHA, they're going to make sure that that student loan is an amortized loan. If you do have a little bit of wiggle room when you're dealing with a conventional loan. So really that particular thing is going to be, what are your long-term goals? Do you have goals for debt elimination? Do you have a business that at some point you're going to want to get lending for? How, what your credit score is, what role is your student loans playing in how you are approved for other things, right? So if you have all of this outstanding student loan debt, what they are reporting on your credit every month that you are late. Every time that you're late, it drops your credit score anywhere from 25 to 50 points. Now, right now, during this particular climate, currently that's not being enacted. Especially if you have Department of Education loans, you have private loans, that's a whole different situation. But when you think about all the things associated with not paying any particular loan, whether it be your credit, whether it be your mortgage, whether it be anything that's attached to your credit report, you definitely want to consider how you behave in that relationship. So again, one, going back to what your goals are. Number two, how important your credit report and your credit score is. Are you using that to leverage yourself forward in business or professionally? All right, so let's get into some tools. We got another question. All right, April, did you refinance your loan? I have a big loan at 6.5% interest, and I'm considering refinancing at a lower interest rate. That's from April. Hey, April.
Hey, April. I have not, but my plan is to start the application tomorrow. Like, honestly.
Okay.
But again, I'm only consolidating about up to $10,000 because that's what I'm confident that I can pay by September 30th. So I'm not taking over the whole entire amount because I am a bit concerned about what my interest rate will be on the other side. So I'm only taking over the amount that I'm confident that I can pay by September the 30th, which is about 10 grand. So I am going to consolidate about 10 grand and take advantage of no interest at all on that amount. So that adds up. That's about 4 of my student loans because I have 4 like smaller ones. I'm going to take those over, and then I will be I'll be aggressively paying those down by September the 30th so that no interest is continuing to accrue on those loans from basically from tomorrow until September the 30th. So that's my plan.
Okay. Right. So that sounds, April, that sounds like a sound plan, just basically looking at how much, if you're in the financial position, how much can you go ahead and send over to the Department of Education so that you can take advantage of that no interest rate, right? Whether or not, if you decide if you want to go with a private lender based on the interest rate, if they're going to give you lower interest rate and you have a plan about strategically eliminating them. Let's say after they recalibrate your loans, they're saying, hey, if you pay X amount at this particular interest rate, you're going to be done in 5 years. You're going to be done in 10 years, and you're prepared to go ahead and make that investment for 5 to 10 years. So this is not something that you're talking about in retirement. I actually have clients that are still, heading towards retirement and they're still paying their student loan debt, right? We're not doing that. We're not doing that, right? That's not person empowerment. The other thing that you're going to want to take it, we got another one. Okay, hold on. We'll get to that one, Stacey. What's that? What's that, sis? Can you break that down? SSELP. All right. So right after we finish talking to April, we'll break down those acronyms. Okay, Ivy. The only thing that you have to do, April, if you are going to decide whether or not, if you currently have loans with the Department of Education, they do have some protections that you're not going to get with lenders specifically right now because of COVID-19. If you have a Department of Education loan, you don't have to pay. Your private lenders, you would still have to pay unless you're going to communicate with them and you're going to create a different type of relationship based on you and your lender. So that's something that you're going to get rid of. So it really depends on what your strategy is. Is there a specific amount that you can afford to pay? And losing those benefits with the Department of Education doesn't really weigh out for you. You're not in a specific career where you're able to, eliminate it or get them paid off. You have to check the list and see whether or not if your career is going to fall up under some of those rights. You want to add anything else to that, Ash, or you want to break those acronyms down?
No, I think that was it. The acronym.
All right. So, what's those acronyms? SSELP. Break that down.
No, it's FFELP, not S.
FFELP.
Yes. So that stands for the Federal Family Education Loan Program. That program, thankfully, does not exist anymore. So you don't even need those acronyms. But many people prior to 2010 fell under those loans. And what the Federal Family Education Loan Program did was it allowed private lenders to offer student loans, and they were guaranteed by the government, right? So my loans fall under that. So my loans are considered private loans, but they are guaranteed by the federal government. That program was dismantled. So today, if you are borrowing, you are not borrowing under that program. You are borrowing through Department of Education, or you're borrowing through a private lender. That program is the reason why I'm in the situation that I am in, and that I cannot benefit from all of the benefits that came with the CARE Act program. So with the FFELP program, there are some private owned FFELP, then there are some that are owned by Department of Education. There was no rhyme or reason why they decided to buy some and not all. They just did. And once the program was dismantled, those of us who have the private FFELP loans are just kind of out in the wind, and everybody else is couched under Department of Education. So, it's at this point, it's kind of a moot point, but that's the reason why I am in the position, and many other people are in the position they're in as well, because our loans were private loans, but they were guaranteed by the government.
So until we get more questions, we're going to start talking about some tools. Okay, I know two people that had their student loans forgiven, and I know someone who had their student loans charged off.
Mm-hmm. They're absolutely student loan forgiveness programs, right? And there are types. They are for people who work in law enforcement. There are some for like medical people who work in the field. There's
teachers,
education, teachers, non organizations, government entities. There are a lot of resources around student loan forgiveness, but you have to make sure that you understand what the program entails and how it operates, because there's a few people who, for example, the public service loan forgiveness, a lot of people think that you sign up once and then that's it for the 10 years. You have to reapply every single year, right? So there are certain things that you have to make sure that you're paying attention to when you're applying for this student loan forgiveness. I think student loan forgiveness is fabulous. And, if you want to take advantage of that, absolutely. Why not? It's not what I'm doing, but I think that I'm grateful that it actually exists. And if one of your careers, or if your career with a resource that forgives loans, then absolutely go for it. But make sure that you kind of read the fine print and know what needs to happen to be able to get it done. Because I was reading a while back that, as a matter of fact, the Department of Education right now had an influx of people who were at their year 10 for the public service loan, and they've only approved like 2% of those loans.
I've seen that too.
So the program exists, but if depending on who our education secretary is, depending on the powers that be, you may or may not get it forgiven. There are people right now that are suing the Department of Education for that right now.
So that one, Kings and Queens TV, the takeaway from that would be, if outside of your entrepreneurship, look on the list and see whether or not if your current career would qualify you for the forgiveness program. The other, the event where I have seen loans charged off by my clients. Here's the grounds in which I've seen loans charged off and loans removed. So let's say you went to a virtual school, right? Let's say you went to a virtual school. Let's say you went to a smaller program, like a vocational program. And let's say while you were attending that particular education institution, they lost their accreditation. They lost their accreditation. The school was closed down for losing their accreditation, and then you still have student loans. Those are grounds to have your student loan balance reduced. Those are grounds to have student loans removed from your credit reports. Having a duplication of an amount, having errors as relates to the amount of your student loans. If you are able to prove this is the amount of student loan debt and there's more there, the amounts are off, those are grounds of having your student loans removed. But just so you know, if you're up against the Department of Education or a private lender, you better make sure that you can prove, number one, that there has been an error. Number two, that the educational institution that you received your degree from is no longer accredited. You can prove this. Then those are the grounds in which you can have your student loans removed from your credit report, having your student loans charged off. But you definitely need to have documentation of that particular university or institution has lost their accreditation. Those are definitely grounds. Okay. Is it hard to know, April Artist? It's hard to know in the current climate whether to build an emergency fund or keep tackling debt. Do you have an EF and how many months worth? All right, so Ives, I'd let you take that first. She wants to know whether or not if you're kind of choosing with your student loan debt, going aggressively and eliminating your student loan debt versus building an emergency fund.
To answer, do I have an emergency fund? Yes. My emergency fund has about 4 months worth of my living expenses. So yes, I do have an emergency fund that I do not touch for an emergency. In terms of paying off, like whether to build an emergency fund or keep tackling debt, I think that is a personal decision. However, here is something that I saw that I thought was a really brilliant idea online, is that if any of your, like, because the student loans are not the only, Department of Education is not the only entity that's allowing you to take a break from paying, right? Some people can take a break from their mortgage company, some people credit cards. Like, I've seen all types of people that are having these like pandemic type benefits, right? So I saw something where a person had, they were taking the payment amounts that they would have paid to that bill, whatever it is, and putting it in a savings account, basically putting it to the side, right? And keeping that amount to the side. Let me just use a student loan so I can actually make it real, right? So if I consolidate my loans and then I have until September the 30th, something that I can do with my cash is I can put my payment to the side until like the absolute almost last minute, so that the cash remains available to me in case I need it. And if I don't have an emergency, I can go ahead and make that payment prior to September 30th. Am I making sense? Like, does that make sense?
Makes sense. All right. So definitely totally making sense. Okay, April. So I'm gonna just do some add-ons to that. So anything that we're going to suggest to you is extremely situational. I do have a free 15-minute session available on my website that you can take advantage of, so that you can share more of your specific situation, because every strategy that you put in place has to be situation, right? No one has your finances, no one has your exact job, no one has your marital, your relational, your extracurricular activities. All of that has to be factored in. All of those things have to be thought about. So are you asking, whether or not I should be building my emergency or paying off my student loan debt? It really depends on whether or not if you're gainfully employed at this time. So when I was getting that question from some of my clients, like, what should I actually do with my student, what should I do with my stimulus check? Well, that again is situational. If you have said, hey, listen, I don't have to pay my rent because my landlord definitely cannot, evict me in this climate. My mortgage company cannot foreclose on me in this climate. So if I'm down to the dollar, then what you're going to do is make that you can put food in your mouth, right? So you're going to make sure that you're not hungry. That's the first thing. Your reserve is to make sure that you need to eat. So the second thing is, because we don't know how long we're actually going to be in this situation, right? Even people that are sitting tight right now, they may not be sitting tight at the end. So if at this time you can, number one, create a budget, look at your income, look at your expenses, see how you can eliminate waste, right? Eliminate waste. For me, I'm not going to necessarily tell you to build up an emergency fund, depending on your situation. If you're going to put, let's say you're putting $1,000 to the side, but then you have $1,000 credit card balance where your interest rate is 16%, 18%, 20%, but yet you're going to hold on to some money in your savings account that's earning 0.22%. In this market, when you see the Fed drops the interest rate when it comes to borrowing, they're also dropping the interest rate when it comes to saving any of your money. So I think one of the biggest takeaways with that is figuring out how you can row that boat at the same time, how you can row that boat. So that boat, in order to get to the other side, it just doesn't have one side where you're just going to build that emergency fund, right? It also has something where you got to climb out of that debt. And then you also need to be figuring out how you can put a little money to the side so that you can invest, right? So you got to have all that going. You got to have your foot going in that car. You got to have both arms. You got to have this, spinning. So that would be that. Some very strategic ways. And you can jump in with this in terms of building up a cash reserve, right? Whether that's an emergency fund or whether or not if you're creating, funds, right? And you're just looking at your income and you're looking at how much money you bring in, how much money you go out, and there's like this tiny space. Shani, what can I do to just create money? Even if I'm not talking about an emergency fund, even if I'm talking about tackling my student loan debt faster, talking about getting rid of my car payment, credit card, whatever. How you do anything is how you do everything, right? So once you figure this, You just take it over to your student loans. You just move it around from one financial instrument to the next. Look at your income, look at your expenses. How much can you save? How much do you waste? How much do you do this, right? Eating out, Uber Eats, wasting money, that stops you from being able to really deal with that or deal with whatever it is that you have going on. So figuring that out. Then figuring out, how can I earn more money, right? After I do debt elimination, how can I earn more money? Is there a business that I can work in? Right now there's a lot of companies that's hiring, right? There's a lot of companies that's hiring. While there's a lot that's firing, there's a lot of companies that's hiring at this time. Figure out whether or not you work for Amazon, doing deliveries, Uber Eats, whatever the case may be, figuring out some ways to go ahead and build some additional funding. Don't just sit there and just look at it, because it's not going to come to you by osmosis. You want to take a very aggressive way of creating that fund. So debt elimination, finding gainful employment, or creating a business that's going to allow you to come into more money. Those would be the ways to go about building an emergency fund, whether you're going to use that fund to do debt elimination or you're going to use that fund to begin investing. So tools, guys, so would it be wise to pay loans while in school, even if they are subsidized? Woo, Theisha, woo, you're right. So would it be wise to pay loans while in school, even though they are subsidized? So you while you're in school, whether you're in undergrad or graduate school, and you have some extra money, should you start paying those student loans like right then and there?
If it were me, if I knew what I know now, I absolutely would start paying them while I am in school. If I have the extra income, 100% I would have done so.
Right. And mainly when you're thinking about, mainly when you're thinking about, just think about, I think a lot of these questions could just be answered by looking at how much interest you pay on your student loans every single day. So if you can save the amount of interest that it takes for you to borrow something, that means more money inside of your pocket. So just knowing that number can save you a lot of problems, save you a lot of trouble too. All right, so you have some really great tools. You've also been able to gain some money. Some people have helped you do some student loan elimination. So tell us a little bit about some of the organizations that has afforded you the opportunity to aggressively pay your student loans down faster.
Sure. There is a nonprofit called Owe Nothing, and Owe Nothing, OWE. And the premise of the nonprofit is that they want to help people pay down student loans. And they do this through these micro grants. They're small grants of $500. Eventually, at the end of this year, their plan is to go up to $1,000. And you apply for it. And, if you're chosen, they give you the grant. Thankfully, I won one of the first rounds of the Owe Nothing initiative. And it's just, it was so nice to have somebody else invested in my goals, right? To be debt free. So you have the Owe Nothing initiative that does a small grant. There is the United Negro College Fund, and I think it's African Pride. They partnered up and they have a $150,000 scholarship for people who attended HBCU. I saw that Essence magazine and Freeform just had one for $150,000. And then there's also another scholarship from, hold on one second, I have it here, from the Student Loan Planner. That all of these are, and I could put these links in the in the box. Like, I absolutely think that everybody should be looking for opportunities to get rid of, to get free money, essentially. That's what it is. So me applying for this Owe Nothing initiative was kind of like, once I got that one, I applied for everything. I applied for everything that says that they want to give me money towards student debt. And then there's another one with Intuit QuickBooks. So those are 5 that I know of that they offer grants for you to pay off your student loans. And it's a very simple, the Owe Nothing is such a simple application. I think it's 5 questions. You put it in a Word document, you email it over, and that is it. Like, it may take 20 minutes, if that, to apply. It's very easy.
All right, so for sure we'll drop some of those links inside of the comments. I hope that you guys were able to add at least one thing to your purse that added some value to you. We gave away a few different takeaways as it relates to doing a mental adjustment. Number one, just being grateful that you were able to access some funding to support you in a goal. Whether you achieve that goal or not, or if you're still working on that goal, thankfully, there was a system in place to support you. The other idea that we stepped into today is thinking about my student loans are actually loans. They're not grants. It wasn't free money. I knew this when I took them. Maybe I wasn't as sophisticated as I am now, but it's a loan, right? The other part is that being able to think about how can I earn more money, right? How can I earn more money so that I can begin to aggressively pay these down a lot sooner? Just because some of my friends are not paying their student loans and they have this laissez-faire approach to debt elimination because number one, I want to use my credit to secure loans. I want to use my credit so that I can purchase a home, whether it's an investment property or if it's a rental property or it's a property that you're going to live in. You want to protect your credit score so that you can begin to leverage it. The other idea that Ivy just offered over is that you can create a different job, a commissionable job, a side hustle, negotiating your income through your employer, looking at the forgiveness program, deciding whether or not if you could go and refinance some of your student loans into Department of Education lending. Therefore, you can take advantage of not having to pay any interest rate, and then looking at your budget and seeing how you could aggressively do that. Does that mean $500? Does that mean $5,000 for you? Based on your income, based on your student loans. The idea that was just suggested to you is that people be giving away free money, sis. All you gotta do is look for it. Look for it. I hope that Ivy, I want to thank you as always just for being one of my financial friends. Thank you for sharing your debt elimination story. I think that one of our roles on the planet is to provoke thought. Everyone is not going to agree with us. Everyone is not going to implement every idea that we think is best, but it is the hope that creates thought. And once we create thought, we can very quickly create action. All right, so there goes the money, honey. I'm supposed to give somebody like something in my IG. I'm gonna jump in the comment section and make sure if you like my IG and you already asked the question, I'm gonna send you this pen. It says my money making pen, says just in case, right? You be signing things, and I'm also gonna send a winner to my book, 10 Things Every Woman Should Keep in Their Purse. We got exactly 2 more minutes. Is there anything that you would like to share? I know you have a group. Yes, you have a group that you can drop in the comments. Tell us a little bit about why you created that particular Facebook group.
Yeah, it's actually strolling across the page. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it's at the bottom. It's there. As Shani mentioned earlier, I recently shared on Facebook that I paid off $30,000 in total debt. $30,000.
Oh wait, $30,000.
No, in total debt. In total debt, 12,000 of that is student loan debt, and I have quite a ways to go. But I'm very excited, and I think that one of the ways that we help each other is by sharing. By inspiring, by providing resources. So I just want to have a location for us to do that, for us to share strategies, for us to share resources, and also share inspiration. I think sometimes when you see somebody who looks like you or have a similar career as you, and they're able to do something that feels unattainable, seeing somebody else do it makes it that much more attainable for you. So I just want all of us to kind of like get done with this. This $1.6 trillion student loan debt in America that's crippling us. Like, I'm not trying to be in that number anymore. I am done. That may not be your goal, but it is mine. And I just want to share the things that I learned along the way. And if you are interested at all, or if you know somebody who's interested and want to be done, please have them come on over and share and, add value.
All right, sis. Open up your spiritual, open up your bank account, open up your stimulus checks. I don't care what it is. Just open it up, and my money better work. All right. And if you ain't feeling like money today, sis, I hope after listening to this show, you feel a little bit like money. But if not, you ready?
We ready. We ready. Bring it over here.
Oh, I got lots of money for you. Until next week. Later.
Bye. Thank you.